so thanks for getting up so early this morning for this topic. And I'm looking forward to talking about this with you because when we talk about AI and machine learning, a lot of times we start losing sight of why we became accountants in the first place. So I'm going to start off with my story of why I chose the career of accounting and becoming a CPA. And the reason I tell this story is because every day we are working with clients that have lives and that are trying to survive. And sometimes we lose sight of that with all of this other talk of machine learning, AI, deadlines, all these other things, instead of thinking about how it gives us an advantage to really start changing our relationship with our clients. So this is a picture from 1987. For those of you that might remember, when stocks plunged, the savings and loans went under. And my mom at that time was a small business owner herself. So she owned maid services in 3 cities. And I had worked in her business from the time I was very young, being a part of the day-to-day operations. She did not have accounting background. She was an art teacher before she started this business. And really at the time, when you think about technology and how rapid it's been since then, clients did not have computers. They did not have access to their financial information. And so they were completely reliant on getting financials from their accountant. And they didn't get that until maybe 6 months after the year. So a lot of times they were flying blind. And for a long time, her business was ramping up. She was basically printing money until this happened. And what happened to my mom's business was she specialized in the construction industry after a while of her business being open. And what she did was clean up after construction jobs. Well, when you take on those types of jobs, you get paid behind. So it's when the construction loans come through, now she has to pay her employees before the jobs actually she gets paid. And there was no accountant along the way advising her on how she should be working this. Well, when this all hit, all of her clients defaulted. She didn't get paid on her contracts. And she had a choice. Should I pay my employees or should I pay my payroll tax? And she chose to pay her employees. Well, for years the IRS was after us because of that. We had to sell our house. We sold all of the furniture in our house. I watched people come into my bedroom as it was tagged to figure out how much money we should charge for each piece of furniture. And when I think back about this experience in my life, this was really why I became an accountant. Because I wanted to make sure that I could change the trajectory for small business clients and they could survive. And when I was younger and trying to figure out what degree I was going to choose, I would go around and network with my mom at these different trade show events. And I would ask all the professionals she worked with, what degree should I get? And hands down, no matter what they did, so these were property managers, contractors, all sorts of people she was networking with to get jobs. They all said to get an accounting degree. Now, when I wrote my book, it was the first time I reassessed that comment. Because when you think about the fact that they said I needed an accounting degree so that if I ever want to be in business, I can make better business decisions. That's actually a true statement. But what the underlying problem to that statement is that means that all these people weren't getting the advice they needed from their accountant. Because if they were, they wouldn't feel like they would need to go to school themselves to become an accountant. And a lot of times as accountants, we lose sight because we have all these deadlines hitting us. And we lose sight of what our clients are experiencing and the help that they need from us. And we don't necessarily return their phone calls because we don't have the time to do it. Or we're not sure what they may ask us. So this is the opportunity that AI and machine learning provides us right now. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a taste of what technology companies like my own and others are doing with this, so that you can see where this may go, apply it into your own field, as well as how you can transform your practice to take the advantages of what this technology does and change the relationship you have with your client. So first off, what is AI and machine learning? Now, this is really, becomes these terms that are out in the world and they seem really complex, but to its basics, at, cloud technology companies, we have servers in the background doing the work, and we are figuring out how we can learn from that data and make it smarter and smarter. And one of the biggest complaints I hear from accountants, I've consulted with thousands of accountants over my career, is always about staffing. I can never find good staff. I can't keep good staff. Well, this is really what this technology does, and I'm going to demonstrate how it actually can serve as a staff person for you in order to free up some of this time of tasks that aren't necessarily value added and free up time that you can spend with your clients. So when you think about all the times we've been disrupted in industry, let's go back to horses. This used to be the only mode of transportation. And when this was the only mode of transportation, it took thousands of hours to get from New York to California by horse. And lots of money. Now, when the railroad came, those people that were breeders, that ran all of these horse farms, probably felt the same way as a lot of people are experiencing about AI and machine learning. Because once the railroad came into play, you were able to get across the country in a week for $150, which really disrupted an industry in the United States. But what happened was people didn't fall by the wayside. They then needed to figure out how they retool, use the same resources in a different way, and take advantage of what was happening in the industry in transportation. Now, there's lots of surveys out there, but, this is one by Deloitte. They interviewed over 10,000 HR and business leaders over 140 countries of who is actually looking at this right now. And 41% said they've fully implemented or have made significant progress in implementing AI or machine learning in their businesses. And 35% reported pilot programs. So this is definitely happening in the world. And let me tell you from a technology standpoint, when you've got product developers, this is so exciting for technology people because they love to push this and see what it can do and how far it can go. So it's not something that we can put our heads in the sand. It's more thinking about how do we retool now. Now with accounting, AI and machine learning is ripe for this because we have a vast amount of data that you can learn from. It's a high-value domain to really figure out how to make it better. There's a clearly targeted structure in accounting data, and many scenarios apply where the machine can learn from the data. Now, this is just a simplistic way of looking at the way it's calculated behind the scenes, but how it's evolved. And basically, what AI and machine learning is taking an algorithm plus the data and creating a model that learns from that. Now, before, the algorithm might have been a person creating that algorithm, and they had data, but that created statistics rather than a model. If you replace the data with a person, that created heuristics, which is really the knowledge of learning about what is actually occurring from that formula. But when we put this all together and let the machine start learning from this formula, it actually starts creating these models that get smarter and smarter to start evaluating what is happening in people's businesses or how it can solve the most basic problems to very complex problems. So let's take an example in our accounting firms that is sometimes a very manual data task that isn't necessarily high value added. So this is an example of when you're trying to schedule people to do work. Now, usually there's a person in the firm that's got a spreadsheet that's figuring out who's available and what client to put them on. However, when you think about that linearly, it's not necessarily the most efficient way to use your people. All it's looking at is who's available so you can assign somebody to a job. Now, when the machine looks at the same data set, the machine's gonna look at all sorts of components to come up with the best answer and the most efficient answer. So not just who's available, but what kind of work does that client need completed? What experience does that staff person have in doing it? How efficient or productive are they as far as time? And the machine can start doing that much faster for you in order to create that efficient model in your practice where you don't have to manually calculate something like that. And it creates a more efficient way for you to get work done in your practice. Now let's look at this in our personal life. This is actually happening all the time, maybe when we don't even realize it. So Netflix, it's recommending the next thing that you should watch based on the things you've watched before. That's AI and machine learning. Facebook, when you go to tag someone and it already knows who that person is, that's AI and machine learning. When you go on Google Maps or you go to get an Uber and it says it will take you 18 minutes to get to your destination, and you're like, wow, that's really helpful. Now I know what time to leave. That's AI and machine learning. So these are all things that are happening in our lives that are actually making our lives better and more efficient. But then, how is this going to apply from our personal life into our business life? And when we look at how this can actually impact our clients and us as an accountants, the impacts can be huge. So some opportunities from this disruption is a few things when you just think about tasks that happen in our practice that may not be the most efficient. So where can AI and machine learning start solving it? And where can you start looking at technology that will start solving it in your practice? Rather than having crunch time at filing deadlines, being able to streamline that work. Rather than chasing clients for information that you need from them, letting the machine chase that information for you so that it can do the client reminders, it can gather the data for you and let you know when that work is ready for you to work on. Rather than you having to do site visits and having time and expense with that, how can you pull more of the work in remotely and be able to do that more efficiently? And a lot of the admin work that we do today, especially even with collecting time, how can the machine actually look behind the scenes and know what clients you and your staff are working on? Because basically, we work in some of the same applications all day long. In our email, which might be Outlook or Google, in Excel, in our Word documents, and possibly our financial software. So from behind the scenes, this data can be gathered rather than us having to figure out how we spent our day and what we worked on. Most of this manual data is going to be a thing of the past because these are the initial things that technology is trying to solve because we know that they are pain points for humans. And what happens is going back to changing that relationship with our clients. How can we actually now take this information that's coming through our system and change that relationship and take advantage of it? And this is really important. It's not just about the work that's going away, but where do we spend our time in changing the client experience? Now, I know when I had clients, a lot of them felt like accounting was like going to the dentist. They hated doing accounting. It wasn't delightful. And what we think about from a technology perspective is why. Why can't this experience be a better experience for small business clients as well? So we call it turning this experience into being magical, that these things actually just happen and delight from the technology software, and we put the work where the accountant should be. So this is an example of our clients feeling like we're very reactive, right? They get information after the fact. Rather than, how can we deploy technology that will be proactive, that if we want to send messages to our clients, we can automatically send it to their watch. Or, when we're trying to gather that information, it's automatically set to hit them on the times and days we want them to get that information, rather than us having to do it. Now, another piece of technology that we look at is Facebook. Because we know that most people spend their days around Facebook. So how can we incorporate that together? There are 1 billion messages through Facebook Messenger between people and businesses each month. So how can you start incorporating what you do rather than them having to come to where your applications are? How do you start integrating into where they are working every day? So how could this look? So this is an example of a chat bot that is behind the scenes on Facebook Messenger, where if a customer was asking questions to its accounting software or to their accountant, it's actually auto-responding in and looking into the accounting software and giving that client information rather than you having to spend time on giving them data that is really at their fingertips, or you've got to stop doing what you're doing to go find it. So when you think about the power of this and how you could change the experience, and also when you think about the differences in generations and the types of clients that you are trying to attract, it's important to think about how you incorporate different technology in order to change that experience with your client. Now, another one is using Amazon. So this is not anything that is actually happening yet, but we've got, technology hackathons of coming up with ways that it might change the way information is brought to us. And many of us might have Alexa in our homes. This is what it might sound like.
Alexa, ask Zero which of my employees have benefits.
There are 3 employees with benefits in pay template, including Mel B. Matthew, Robert Nevada, Scott employee.
What benefits does Robert have?
Robert Nevada has 2 benefits: employer health insurance with fixed amount of $100, 401k retirement plan with percentage of 0.0%.
Alexa, ask Zero to create a draft pay run.
The draft pay run was created for 3 employees with net pay of $47,189.57. It has combined earnings of $86,697.03 and combined taxes of $39,507.46. It has payment date of July 7, 2017.
So these are questions that sometimes we get that we can't get to fast enough, that the machine can actually give to our clients faster, so that they know if they need to get some money in their cash account to cover their next pay run. So when you think about all the technologies that are out there, you might not think of these as accounting technologies, but they are actually things that technologists are thinking about. How do you incorporate your personal and business life together so you can get the answers you need when you need them? Now, this is another area that we've been working on that we really feel like will help small business owners. So we put in a couple years ago a feature into Xero called Find and Recode. And what that is a lot of times we get our clients' data, it's a mess, and then we have to spend time recoding it and getting it into the right chart of accounts so that we can even evaluate the financial statements. Now, from the small business point of view, accounting is really hard, and it's just something that every time they're asked to code to a chart of account, they're not sure what they're supposed to do. So what we're working on at Xero is actually thinking about, why do they need the account code when they are doing transactions on their side? What we've done over the last couple years is move all of our technology into AWS servers. So what that means is that these servers are able to learn from the data rather than everybody being on a separate server. Well, what happens with all of this is that information, when we started looking at find and recode, accounts were coding to basically the same accounts over and over again with different clients. And we could make that data predictable when transactions were occurring so that we knew what account it should go to. And we're about 90% accurate right now when we're testing this. So what we're looking at doing is we've got an accountant side to the accounting software, and we have a small business side to the accounting software. Why does the client need to see the chart of accounts if they're screwing it up more than the machine? And why should you waste your time keeping recoding everything that they're doing? So instead, what will surface on the accountant side is the chart of accounts, so that you can evaluate that the machine coded it right. But it will also pop up and say, you can go back and check these accounts, but this 10% of the accounts we weren't so sure about, these are the ones you should focus your time on and clean up. So that way we start limiting the time you have to spend on those things so you can get to evaluating the data faster and analyzing it for the information you need and not having to wait to get through all of that to do what you need to do. But with all of this, advice is what has differentiated us from tech. And going back to the story I started with, without an expert, financial expert, helping you in doing what you need to do or giving you the advice that you need, the technology is never going to do that. So I've run a number of workshops with small business owners. And even though the technology gives them information, it doesn't tell them anything. They don't know what to do with that information. But what they do need is an accountant to provide them that advice on what to do. And what this really changes is the way information is presented. Because when you get off desktop and you're actually sharing information through the cloud, you can have these types of conversations with your clients. Now, this is happening already in some of the largest firms that are out there to get rid of a lot of these non-value-added tasks. So when you think about when you collect minutes and employee agreements and contracts and you're looking for certain pertinent accounting data, Deloitte has actually created technology to search those contracts and pull the pertinent information that an accountant needs to know that's in those documents, rather than having to read line after line after line. This helps to speed up our process, especially when we're in a value billing situation or a fixed billing situation, so that we can get to our work faster and be able to give the information we need or be prepared. Now, how this might look as far as evaluation of financials is, this is an example just in our accounting software of how we have business performance dashboards that actually create KPIs, do ratios, so that you can start looking at trend analysis right in the data without you having to go to Excel or some other application and calculate that manually. And this is truly a difference in our thinking between how we think about time and how the client thinks about time. So we have typically billed by the hour when we're sitting there calculating all of this stuff, but the client wants the answer quicker, or the attorney you're working with needs to answer quicker. And that's what technology does, is speed up getting you those answers so you can dive into that data and start giving advice. However, you don't have to spend all the time calculating it in Excel or other applications that you're doing. It doesn't change the value of what you're providing. It just changes the speed at which you're able to give that advice. There's also lots of applications you can layer on to the top of accounting software that goes even further, that might do what-if analysis or forecasting or benchmarking or other ways to actually really root into the data to give you the look that you're looking for without having to go to Excel. We also have a feature called an assurance dashboard, and what this does is look in the accounting software for anomalies or where fraud might be occurring. And they're typical fraudulent things where you see transactions deleted or voided, and why is that happening, or numbers being off, or users that are in the file that shouldn't be in the file, or old users that it's been a long time and all the time you see them in the file. It's to bring that information to the forefront so you can be looking for things that could be causing problems with that data. Now let's talk about how this will affect us as a profession and how you can retool your skills. Now, thinking about all of these concepts that I've talked about, some of these are farther reaching than others, but they're coming, is you should think about the tools that you use on a daily basis, or how you communicate, or non-value added tasks that you really need to eliminate in your practice in order for you to be able to move faster to give the advice that you need to give, or work on your relationships with clients or people that you're networking with. And think about the stages, and we look at like this in technology, of how far along we are with implementing different types of technology, but you can be looking at this as well from a practice standpoint. So, obviously stage 1 is oblivious, you're unaware of what it is, you haven't heard of it, but moving into the learning stage. So starting to assess what technology is out there, so really taking an assessment of your practice or things in your relationships in your practice that you need to solve for, that are actually surfacing as issues, and start researching where you could find technology that might be able to start solving this for you. The third stage is really experimenting, so taking 2 to 3 of those technologies, testing them in your practice, and seeing how they may work for you. And then deciding which one of those are the ones you want to go with that you think are really going to help. And rather than thinking about this too large, actually start small so that you can see how you would roll this out in your practice. After you've done 1 or 2 technologies, this is really where the acceleration moves forward, so that you can start implementing over and over again because you've got the processes in place in your practice, and you start getting leaner and more agile in figuring out what things need to be solved for. Now, when you start putting automation into your practice, it starts freeing up time. And a lot of times, this actually causes the issue is, what do I do with that time? Rather than thinking about, how do I actually change around my services and do them in a different way? And when I wrote this book, I really stepped back to think about the trusted advisor term. So this is a term that's kind of been pushed on our profession for many, many years. And I went and looked at the definition of trusted. And trusted means regarded as honest and sincere. Now, when you think about that definition, is that something we should strive for? Or is that something we should just be? Right? This is something that I want to maybe change the thinking of when automation changes this, how can, instead of being trusted, which we should be trusted, we strive for being cherished. And that is a totally different relationship with the people that either refer us clients or the clients that we work with. And when we are cherished, we're treasured, we're highly valued as a professional. And we know that more and more work is going to come to us because we are cherished in that relationship. This becomes really important when you think about clients and their needs, and a lot of times we don't walk in and try to figure out why they're saying what they're saying or what they're trying to solve for. We're just solving for whatever they say because we need to get the work done. When we flip that relationship to cherished, we're actually going deeper to try to understand what is actually causing the issues for them as businesses. So this is where we go beyond technology. And we don't talk about this as much, but it's just as important, is working on our soft skills. So when we deploy that technology and we start automating things in our practice that maybe was administrative work or things that took us extra time, we don't typically use a lot of our CPE time to work on our soft skills, to work on our relationship skills and how we build value and how we think about the client experience. How much time do we step away from our practice and actually spend time on what is that client's experience with every touch point in our practice so that they're experiencing something different than anyone else that they go to. And it really comes down to 6 components of skills that you really should think about, who in your practice needs to work on different ones and give them some time to work on that. So first off, being responsive. This is usually a complaint of people that refer us work or that are clients of ours, that we don't return our calls or emails fast enough. What I have found along the way is a lot of times we don't do that because they want an answer and we're not sure we can give them an answer right on the spot. However, there really isn't a human expectation that we need to give an answer right then and there. It's being responsive. That when we say, you know what, I'm going to look into that we get back to them in 24 to 48 hours. That changes the relationship. They don't care whether you know the answer right away. It's collaboration. How do you collaborate with your team members as well as your clients so that there's mutual respect and goals that you're trying to achieve, or the people you're networking with? So if you're trying to get business from other attorneys as well, it's really important to understand what their goals are so that you're serving them and giving back as well. Influence. So a lot of times as experts, we have clients coming into us for information and we just tell them the answer. And they're just supposed to follow whatever we say is the answer because we are the expert. However, they walk away not understanding why you said what you said and just feeling like they're not so smart. Rather than thinking about how you influence a relationship to still get to the outcome that you want to get to, where someone doesn't feel like they weren't as smart as you or need more explanation, that you are actually influencing the outcome. Problem solving. Again, it's not that you need the immediate answer, but you know where to go to start looking into the underneath of what they're saying, to start solving the issues that are encountering with that client or the person referring to you. Leadership. It's not necessarily that you're a partner or you've got this big title. It's that you demonstrate trust, that when someone comes to you, you've been there, you've done that they're safe with you. That is leadership. And that's what makes someone feel that they have the right person that they're working with. Project management. That you've thought about every touch point that they're going to go through when they enter into your practice and how that experience is going to be, because this is really important when you're getting referrals from other professionals, because they're going to ask those clients, how did that go with that accountant that they referred them to? And if they're not getting that great experience, they're going to give you a bad referral back to that attorney that might have referred you work, and they might not refer additional work to you. So thinking about that's really important. And it's really important to ask those questions to those clients, because usually clients understand that there's an issue. They just don't know what it is. So spending the time to ask those questions and become that treasured resource to them, that they know that through all of the things that they do, that you have different areas where you center yourself as that treasured resource. So whether it's thought leadership, writing, blogging, speaking, whatever you do, strategic partnerships that you create, that they know even if you're not the person that could help them, that you're the person that they're going to come and ask the question to of who they should go to because they trust you. That you are getting the referrals and you are referring other work. You're doing networking and you're central in hosting events that may not have to do exactly with the things that you do that might be of interest to your clients so that they don't get into trouble later. So this customer experience is the entirety of what they do as they enter into your practice. It goes all the way from awareness to discovery to cultivating that relationship to advocacy, so they are talking about you to other people, and it's good stuff. That they are telling other people that when they have this experience with you, it's totally different. And how you're servicing them. What does your support look like? How do you have a team of people that are actually helping your client, and it's not all just reliant on you? When you're actually going through this discovery phase, that you're documenting everything that that client needs, even if you're not going to do it all in the beginning, but that you document this as you go forward so that you can keep referring back to it, make sure you're delivering what you said you were going to deliver, and that you are answering their questions and taking them to the next step they wanted to go to later. It's really important that we think about advisory services in a different way, that this technology expands what we are able to do, that you have empathy to that client's issue, that we don't see someone just as another client, that we're really trying to understand what are the issues that are causing their problems and how do we come up with their solutions. So make sure when you're thinking about how to deploy this technology, you're not just thinking about, oh, this might take my job. This is really about how do we change the experience. And this is what people remember, not what you say, but how you make them feel. So if you're deploying technology in a different way that's proactive and their experience with you is completely different than they have with any other accountant, they're going to remember that experience. They're going to remember you asked them questions, that you cared about their pain points and how you solved them. So just in summary, making sure that you identify technologies that you could start implementing now and start looking at. Make sure you're remaining up to date on what's happening because this is so rapid. It is happening constant. You need to be reading, you need to be spending some time each day or once a week just looking at what's happening in the technology world and how you might be able to apply it into your practice. Learn how to interpret the data, take that information rather than calculating it, but figuring out how to analyze it, and think outside of that compliance box so that you're adding back that value. Spending that time on developing your soft skills and then figuring out how to tailor and customize this to your practice to make your experience different. Now, I am going to end with this quote because this is a partner that I've worked with for a few years at EisnerAmper, and he's up for retirement this year. But in the last couple years at EisnerAmper, they've spent a great amount of time transforming into this advisory services practice. And he sat across the table from me a few months ago and said, I'm supposed to retire next year, and I'm trying to figure out with the partners how I can still continue on a relationship because this has now been the most exciting time of my entire career. So rather than having fear of what's coming, this is actually a time to take advantage. This is the most important time in the profession in such a long time that we have this opportunity to take advantage of technology in a different way and be able to change that relationship with our clients. So with that, I'm open for questions.
Great. Thank you, Amy. This is fantastic. We do have a couple questions for you. One of them is, our industry has a history of investing in technology and then maybe cutting back on the fees or taking value out of our revenue streams. How is AI different than other technologies in the past?
Yeah, so I think this is the same across the accounting industry. We have to look at the value that we provide as different than the technology that speeds up the time. Again, when we evaluate ourselves by the time it takes to do something versus the value we are provided. And if we don't take advantage of this technology in the right ways, yes, it can replace us if we are not adding any extra value to the relationship. But if we start now thinking about what does this look like in changing the relationship once this technology can take on some of this work that we do, it should not change the fee that you're charging. Because at the end of the day, they need your answers and they need what you are there to provide, but you've got to work on those skills on how to provide that in a different way. And a big thing that I think gets missed a lot is when I work with accounting practices, I ask them, are your clients happy? How do you know? And a lot of time the answer is, well, they come back next year. That does not mean client happiness. And it's important to ask our clients, what could I be doing different to provide you more value? When you're going through this assessment process, or even those attorneys that refer you work, what would you like to see me doing that I'm not doing? Don't be afraid of those answers, because it actually is what helps you to innovate and set yourself apart later.
So there's been a couple of questions on the topic of, I'll call it reliance on the technology. But basically, how do we know that what's spitting out of the computer is accurate? And also there's a question about, will this replace 100% of the audit? And I think the answer to that is no, because there's a level of judgment. But as you think about the accuracy of the software, and not necessarily the software, but technology in general, where do you see that transition of value add and accuracy as the development of technology becomes more important in our profession?
So that's a great question, and I'm going to step back because I think there's a symptom to that, more than just the technology. As a profession, we do not trust and we do not delegate. That is a redeeming issue in a lot of our practices. We'll even say that about our staff. I can't give my staff this work. There's no way they could do it. But we don't actually spend time training our staff so that they're ready to come to that next level or thinking about how they do that. Same thing with technology. We are in early stages of technology, so there's going to have to be a level of judgment where you are going back and reviewing the numbers and making sure you feel confident with what the technology is doing. So I would definitely recommend, no matter what implementation you do, in the first month or 2 months, you run parallel. So you let the machine do it, and then you do it your old way, and see who's coming up with, are you coming up with the same answer, a better answer, what is it missing? But just because it might not come up with 100% of the same answer that you got, but maybe it came up with 80%, figure out, okay, well, it took 80% of that piece away. Now all I have to worry about is the next 20%. I can feel confident and I can trust this. But just from an auditor's perspective, I was an auditor as well, statistically sample it, just like you're used to doing. Make sure that you have a comfort level that the answers are coming out right, and there's nothing materially wrong in those answers. And at the end of the day, you should start feeling more and more confident as it starts rolling out.
Great. Thank you so much. I don't think we have any other substantive questions that are necessarily totally off point, so it's been a wonderful Q&A and presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.